Guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, Do You Hate Men Sometimes? Talking Misandry with I Hate Men's Pauline Harmage. And guys, this whole article is talking about this woman who wrote this book recently titled, and wait for it, I Hate Men. No joke, okay? And she is literally talking about the joy and of basically hating men and how sometimes it's considered to be necessary and healthy for women to do so. This is insane. But here we are in today's world, so nothing shocks me anymore. But this goes to show you just how bad it's gotten. And another thing is, guys, the woman that wrote this, she's only 26 years old. She's a French woman, 26 years old, a 100,000% effinist. And I gotta ask myself, what possibly has happened to her in her 26 years on this planet that at 26 years old, she already has this stance about men and things like that, right? It's crazy. And by the way, guys, take a moment here to pause the video, scroll down to the description, and click on the link so you can see her picture, okay? And it will say it all. She literally, in my opinion, looks like Harry Potter's evil effinist twin sister. No joke, okay? No exaggeration there. And by the way, notice the furry animal behind her in the picture there. Again, that says it all. Talk about a stereotype. But anyhow, this whole article will talk about her and how her book that was supposed to be a small release took off. No surprise today in this crazy world. And then the other part of it is actual interview with her and a guy obviously asking the very important questions with regards to her opinions on these things and what led her down this path. And it's crazy, but nothing shocks me. But anyhow, guys, I'm going to get into this here and you'll see more what I'm talking about. But again, yeah, before I get into this, pause the video, take a look at her picture. You're going to laugh your ass off. Article starts off. In her 1972 essay, The New Misandry, American writer Joanna Russ writes, there are two types of women who don't hate men, the very lucky and the very blind. Nearly 40 years later, 26-year-old French effinist and writer Pauline Harmage has, like Russ, and others both before and after her, attempted to rescue misandry, or the hatred of men, from its pointed hat and broomstick associations, and understand it not as an aberration, joke, or liability, but as a logical human response to oppression and inequality. Logical, healthy, good thing? In no way, shape, or form is hatred a good thing. In any way, shape, or form. I don't care where it's coming from, who it's directed at, okay? So, in what crazy world is this considered to be a good thing, right? Well, we're in a crazy fucking world right now. Her 80-page essay, originally published in France in August 2020 as, I can't pronounce this in French, titled I Hate Men, makes the modest proposal that misandry is not dangerous or corrosive, but a source of joy. Not dangerous or corrosive? You gotta be kidding me. Who are you kidding? She says, what if misandry were necessary, healthy even, she writes, and possibly the means by which women may liberate an unsuspected power. Again, if a man wrote a book talking about women in this way, how well do you think that would go over? Do you think that would see the light of day? Do you think that would be considered to be okay? Not a chance in hell. But if it's the opposite, well, then that's obviously different. Again, tell me about equality here. That query and succeeding answer was initially intended for a small audience. Bullshit. Harmage got an unexpected publicity boost, however, when an advisor to the French Minister of Gender Equality tried to have the book banned for inciting sex-based hatred. Whoa, let's slow down here. There is actually a French Minister of Gender Equality? Get the hell out of here. For my French followers, let me hear your opinions on that. As a result, its initial 400-copy press has now ballooned into the tens of thousands, and the slim volume has been sold internationally, including here in Canada, in a recently released English translation. Harmage on the phone from her home in northern France defines what misandry means to her, how charges of man-hating have historically been used to silence women, and why she thinks embracing it is healthy. This is crazy. This is madness. Embracing hate is... By the way, guys, I have no idea if this video is going to see the light of day when I publish it, because I'm using so many words here that definitely could raise some red flags. Who will say about that? I hope you guys get to see this, because this is crazy. Healthy my ass. This is now the guy interviewing her, this part of the article here. So he starts off with his question towards her, and he says, I was expecting more anger in I Hate Men, to be honest, and was surprised by how calm and modest your proposals were. The primary one being your desire to be granted the right to simply acknowledge that you don't really like men as a group, or how little they've done to advance gender equality. So basically she's going to hate on him hate them because in her view, they're not doing enough to promote gender equality. And what I'd like to know what truly is her definition of that, because you talk to different people have different ideas of what that is. Some people are so extreme on some things, and other people it's just minor stuff. But I'd like to know her. I guarantee hers is very extreme. And he said, I was expecting her to be more angry, but he's surprised how calm she was in the book. Well, that's the most insidious type. The ones that are just calm and easy about it, okay? They just slither in and spread their hate and their venom. He says, how do you respond to the criticism that you're not that angry? Am I just disappointed to find out that Misandry is and always has been an intellectual and moral response to inequality? Yeah, right. And she says, I get it. I think also the controversy around the book has made people expect a very fiery piece of work. It's funny because that's really not who I am as a person, and that's not to say that I don't understand or support very angry effinists, but it's just not who I am. Yeah, sure, you don't write a book saying, I hate men or I hate anything, unless you are very, very screwed up and full of anger, full of rage. No, she's playing it cool. I guarantee you she's got herself a, somebody that, I can't even think of the word right now, but somebody who's advising her, basically, to be calm, because otherwise if she comes off all fiery and everything, it could potentially kill her message and all that. No, there's no way you write a book like this and you're not fired up and full of anger and all that. I think that people see hatred like men. Men will hate someone and be violent towards them. Maybe we can see another way to hate and despise in politics. The guy says, how do you refine misandry in the book? Or redefine misandry in the book? She says, when people look up misandry in the dictionary, it says a morbid hatred for men, which it isn't so much. Bullshit. What I experience, and what a lot of women experience, is that it is a general negative feeling toward men as a gender and a social group. It can vary from just being wary of them to honestly not wanting to deal with them in daily life because of, well, the patriarchy. I was waiting for that buzzword to come in. Again, what happened to her in her 26 years on this planet that she is at this point, okay? All she's going to do is just get people all riled up. And by the way, many a times I get always accused of two things, or asked two things in my channel. People say to me, number one, who hurt you? And two, you hate women. Let me make this abundantly clear. I've talked about both before, but number one, nobody's hurt me in a way that has led me to do this channel. I do this channel to help out guys. Every aspect of life. Become better, improving themselves, having a good life, and of course with women, because this is a men's channel, not getting burned, not getting hurt, having a good life, all that. And the other question I get is, obviously, or the thing they say is, oh, you hate women. No, I don't. I never said I hate women, and I absolutely do not hate women. I just point out the good, the bad, and the ugly, and unfortunately in today's world there's a lot of bad and ugly out there to help guys. So some people might say, you do the same thing. No, I don't. She is actually promoting the hatred. She says, Effinists have argued that misandry as a concept is false because, as you write, that unlike misogyny, there is no coordinated structured system for denigrating or coercing men. You acknowledge that there is something real about it, that it is an emotional and psychological consequence for many women as a result of living in a patriarchy. Ding, ding, ding. We're making a drinking game out. Every time she says patriarchy, you gotta do a shot. How has recognizing that been helpful to you? She says, the anger is here. It is boiling inside many women. I have a very hard time believing that anger is boiling inside many women. I really have a hard time believing that, okay? And exactly what anger is that towards? Could it be things like maybe potential harassment, or could it be supposedly because of the gender pay gap, or other things like that? I'd like to really know what, in her opinion, is this thing that's boiling inside. When you can put words on it and go to the roots of it, then you are more able to redirect this energy that's building up inside to fight for something. Misandry is not a tool for effinism. It's just a reaction for what we are suffering every day. Acknowledging that can make us more efficient when we are fighting against patriarchy. Do another shot. Not a tool for effinism? Come on here. Another question the guy has for her, he says, what's the problem with thinking of misandry as the flip side of misogyny? That's a good question. She says, it's a show of bad faith because everyone knows there's no system that empowers women when they hate men. Well, there shouldn't be a system empowering anybody for hating anything. The worst atrocities in the world in the history of mankind have become about because of, wait for it, hate. I would say that misogyny is the tool of the oppressor and misandry is the response of the oppressed. So there's no parallel that can be made. Bullshit. There are people who say to me, if the book had been called I Hate a Certain People, I'm not going to say what it is, it would be horrible. But men are an oppressive force, and the world is built to please the men. Men are not going to suffer from such a book. It is things like this that are making things worse around the world. And don't tell me that's not going to make things worse for guys. Okay? Things have gotten pretty darn bad out there. Why do you think so many people are now talking about this? Why do you think so many channels are popping up? Look at the damage the effinist movement has done on so many levels. Look at our society now here, at least in the West. And when I say the West, I mean the western part of the world or here in the United States. Not the West as in like the western part of the United States. You got more guys now that are acting more girly than girls. You got girls that are acting like men. They're conditioned to be that way from movies and TV and media, and they're liberal teachers in elementary school and in the schools growing up. How's that help things? Divorce is through the roof. Nobody's getting together anymore. The nuclear family is being torpedoed. Okay? Where does all that come from? The so-called equality thing. Right? Trying to make men like women, make women like men, and I can go on forever, and you all know I can do that, but get the hell out of here. The guy then asks, he says, your book garnered international attention after an advisor to the French Ministry for Gender Equality took issue with its publication, urging your publisher to withdraw it or else face prosecution for inciting sex-based hatred. Were you prepared for that kind of response? She says, it was a huge surprise because the book was published originally by a very small publishing house that printed only a few hundred copies. To this day, I don't know how this man came to find the book on the internet. I guarantee you that I don't buy that. I guarantee you that she did that and they probably said this is going to get attention somehow because you can't hide anything on the internet, especially social media. And there you go. I just don't buy that. He then asked her, the guy says, he reacted to the title of your book without reading it. Do you see a parallel between his reaction and how people react to misandry generally? She says, what I've come to realize now is that a lot of women have thought this single sentence. Oh my God, I just hate men sometimes. And that's why they seem to they're drawn to this book. Yeah, you see, that phrase of a typical woman saying, oh my God, I just hate men sometimes. Yeah, that could be in a way like they're annoyed because of guys, certain qualities and behaviors that drive them crazy, but they don't really hate them. Okay, that's the thing here. Okay, they still are in relationships with men and date men and all that stuff. She's different. She truly hates them. Okay, and a lot like her, and she's promoting that. That's the difference. I think it's also why men find it hard to think of themselves as creatures that we can criticize. This man who just saw this title of the book, he just couldn't bear the idea of being part of the criticism of virility and masculinity. No, the guy saw a title of a book called I Hate Men, and obviously saw that's a bad thing. End of story. And obviously, reading it and seeing more about her, what does it say? And like I said, guys, take a look at her picture. Does she look very happy to you? Okay? Holy shit. The guy continues on with his interview. He says, effinists are always charged with being man-haters, and some are self-conscious about that because it's a historically effective way of discrediting their evidence and their arguments. What power lies in owning hatred of men as a social group? She says, I think when you are free from fear of bad faith criticism, you can focus on what's really important. We lose a lot of time and energy reassuring people that we really like men and that they are welcome. And that eats up so much time and energy that we can't put in the actual work that we need to do. It also frees up time to enjoy a lot of other things that are very interesting and fulfilling as women that aren't trying to please men. It's a liberation. That's another buzzword we get a lot of. It's a liberation of the mind and of the schedule. She is something. If this is how she is at 26, wait till she is 46. The guy asked, what's your response to moral panic around women expressing their hatred for male power? You know, women, everybody's entitled to their views, in my opinion, in here, in their head. But if they're actually promoting harmful things, hatred, things like that, then that's a different ballgame. You know, you can have women that have some disdain and not be very happy about certain things with regards to men or male power, like you just mentioned here, but there's nothing to hate. She says, men seem incapable of imagining a world where there would be no patriarchy, but there would also be no matriarchy. Patriarchy again. They seem to believe that if we lose patriarchy, it means we will have total power over them. They don't have a lot of imagination when it comes to power structures. It shows we have a lot of work to do to make people understand effinism has never been about making women more powerful than men. Bullshit. Maybe in the beginning it wasn't that. Maybe. Being able to vote, not being seen as property, things like that. Okay. I got no problem with that. But it did shift about actually dominating and taking charge of and emasculating men. That's what it is today. That's how it's been for a while. So don't tell me that that's not what it's about, because that's bullshit. And believe me, that would be her dream come true. Any of you guys ever seen the Wonder Woman movie that came out a few years ago? Okay, I did. And in the movie, because it's obviously a superhero thing, the island that Wonder Woman's from, it's all women. All women. That's what her and types like her, that would be their dream come true. That would be their utopia right there. It has always been equality. Bullshit. A lot of people really seem to think that if we could, we would inflict upon men as much attacks, I'm not going to say the word, as we have suffered. That's not what we want because it's horrible. The guy continues on with his interview. He says, part of the argument for ignoring the reality of misandry is that it alienates men. You don't agree with that POV. Why? It does alienate men. She says, I don't want to be friends with a system that will just crush anyone that's not rich, white, or heterosexual dude. See? Her colors are coming out. These are the true colors. See? I don't want to be part of a system that won't crush anyone that's not rich, white, or heterosexual dude. Basically, anybody that falls into that category should be ashamed of who they are and ashamed of their privilege and all that. That's the mindset that's trying to be sold. The thing about that power is that you can try to be in power or be powerful yourself, or you can say that you don't want power and that no one should have power over anyone else. I think effinism as a revolutionary idea should be about the idea that nobody should have power over another human being, because that's where so much inequality comes from. Yeah, but your group, that's what they want. That's what I guarantee you what she wants. She's playing. She knows she's she's in the spotlight, and she's got to tone it down. The guy asked, do you feel like you've lost potential male allies as a result of this book? Wait to hear this answer. She says, I think there are a lot of men out there that say they're allies, but when you scratch the surface, you realize that they are not. They are just kind of offering a performative role that is not helpful at all. If I have helped getting rid of fake allies, I'm very glad. There's a lot of debate right now about generalization and saying things like men are trash, but I think it's very easy to recognize when you are part of something that's problematic and when you are not. So there are a lot of guys out there that still think that modern day effinism truly is about equality, and they're allies and they want to help them out, okay? But she, even guys that go for that, in her view, they're not allies. They're full of crap, whatever, and basically they're all the devil, okay? There's people's words and there's actions, and she's saying one thing, but believe me, she means something else. He then says to her, there's been a sporadic public conversation in North America around the idea of misandry and mainly as playful, ironic. Is there a similar kind of movement in France? Do you feel support from French effinists? She says, in France, when I wrote my book, there was this idea that a lot of effinists call themselves misandrous as a jest because it's really difficult to acknowledge that you're not really joking because you have to get into the same really unpleasant debates. When I published this book, I got a huge amount of support from French effinists, and whenever I'm attacked on the internet, I feel like I was a nobody before, and now I'm part of this very touching family of women who know what the deal is with men in general. I can only imagine that group getting together. Good Lord. Of course she got the support from them because she's, selling their same BS idea. In France, the backlash against effinists is very, very violent, and now I know that personally. The guy says, do you see any irony in the backlash to your book and say the widespread support for free speech when it relates to something like Charlie Hebdo? She says, I hadn't really thought about it this way, but it definitely is a very ironic indeed. But it also pertains to a very reactionary French idea of what freedom of speech should be, meaning the freedom to say whatever is offensive in cover of humor, and not actually wanting hard truths and serious topics of conversation regarding discrimination to actually be discussed. Well, again, talking about the free speech and all that, what if a guy wrote a book saying, I hate women? How would that go? It wouldn't be published. Guaranteed. But she's getting a lot of exposure and support and all this. It's unbelievable. And the last question he had for her, he says, you mentioned that French effinists get a violent response in France. Any come to mind? Could you mention something you're thinking of or some of the harassment that you've gotten? She says, when my book came out with a French journalist and activist, Alice Coffin, also released her book titled I'm not going to read that word, you can figure it out, but a certain group, Genius. For the second time in the same year, she was attacked on social media, received very serious threats, so much that she had to be placed under protection. She said first that as a, she was very, very much less likely to be raped and beaten by her partner. And then in her book, she said that the male gaze was so powerful in pop culture that she didn't want to give it any more space in her own imagination, and only watched female-directed movies, read female-written books, etc. Again, with the extreme here, this woman's only going to watch female-directed movies and female-written books. Don't tell me this isn't about hate. Come on here. And isolation and all that. We both had our fair share of photoshops of our faces as Hitler. We kind of bonded over it. Every time my book or my name was mentioned in French media, it was alongside hers. I also think of Rokhaya Diallo, another French journalist who speaks of racial issues as well as gender issues and is constantly defamed and debased in the media. So that is the end of her thing there, guys. And again, I did this, and thanks to Craig for sending me this, to show you this is the type of stuff that is out there, okay? So guys need to speak up and call BS when there's BS, okay? And again, you gotta be kidding me. If a guy wrote this book, how would that go, right? How would that be seen? It'd be torn apart, right? That book wouldn't see the light of day, but it'd still be mentioned that a guy was trying to do a book like that, and he'd be just completely torn apart by the social media, regular media, all that. But her, different ballgame. And again, this is the type of people that are out there. This anger, I mean, it's unbelievable. She's 26 years old, and she's writing a whole book about I hate men. How much life experience has she had at 26 years old? Come on, I mean, I get some people can have some very bad experiences, and I don't want anybody to have bad experiences in the way that, you use your imagination, what I'm talking about here. But still, she's going to spend her whole life being miserable, and she's going to then infect other people, making them just as miserable as her. But, guys, we got to talk about these things, bring it to light. Again, I have no idea if this video is going to see the light on YouTube once I publish it, because a lot of the words that are used in this article, I tried to sugarcoat some things and change some words around to bypass the YT secret police, but we'll see. But if you make it this far, I hope you enjoyed it. But it's crazy, guys. But anyhow, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.